Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from YourBlackWorld.com, and today I got up this morning and I read that the local chapter of the NAACP, the Seminole County chapter of the NAACP, at least the president of that chapter, has stood directly against Reverend Al Sharpton's call for economic sanctions and civil disobedience in response to the arrest or the lack of arrest of George Zimmerman in the case of Trayvon Martin. Turner Clayton, who is the Seminole County president, basically said that this was in response to Sharpton's statement that we hope the citizens of Sanford will govern themselves accordingly. We are not calling for any sanctions against any business or anyone else. And, of course, what Reverend Sharpton does, that's strictly the National Action Network. We can't condone that part of the conversation if that's what he said. Now, to put that into context, I brought in Dr. Wilmer Leon, a Howard University professor and host of the show Inside the Issues with Wilmer Leon on Sirius XM channel 128, The Power. And Dr. Leon, you are, in my opinion, the leading political science expert in the country, especially on black politics. I was curious to get your take on these sanctions and whether or not you think Sharpton was out of line or whether you think the NAACP was out of line or what might be going on here. What do you think, Dr. Leon?
Well, first, Boyce, thank you for calling me. But in deference to scholars such as Mac Jones and Robert Smith and Diane Pender-Hughes and others such as Dr. Artemisia Stanbury, I have to take exception to being the leading political scientist. But with that being said, and Sekou Franklin and Pearl Ford. With that being said, I understand Turner Clayton's response to Reverend Sharpton, because Turner Clayton, I'm sure, is looking out for what he deems to be the best interest of businesses in Sanford, Florida. But I also understand Reverend Sharpton's call for economic sanctions. In a piece that I have published recently, I've called for a boycott of the state of Florida. Because I think in 2002, the data showed $40 billion of tourist dollars flow into the state each year, and they're expecting by 2013 that number may have increased by 31%. There's a lot of tourist dollars. Tourism is the greatest economic generator in the state of Florida. And if we are seeking justice, then we need to look at the types of actions that have worked for us in the past, such as the Montgomery bus boycott now my years are mixed up. I think it's 1955. On the heels of Emmett Till having been slain in August of 1955. So as much as Juan Williams wants to say that there are no similarities here between the murder of Emmett Till and the murder of Trayvon Martin, I beg to differ. I think there are some similarities. I wrote a piece to that effect. And again, as the Montgomery bus boycott started on the heels of the Emmett Till murder, I think that we should boycott Disney World. We should boycott Epcot Center. We should boycott Paramount Studios. We should boycott the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, the baseball teams, until justice is brought for the murder of Trayvon Martin.
And I agree.
In fact, let me say one more thing. I also understand that taking this position is somewhat dangerous or perilous, as we understand that the state of Florida is going to be key in the 2012 presidential election. Because if President Obama is able to carry Florida, Ohio, and Virginia, no Republican can win the presidency based upon the numbers particularly if they lose those three states. And so I can understand why people want to tread lightly, even looking at the impact that this could have on the presidential election. I understand why people want to tread lightly here in calling for a boycott of Florida. But I think that we need to demonstrate our power with our pocketbooks, and we cannot support a state that allows a murderer, and I said that, George Zimmerman is a murderer, to walk free while Trayvon Martin's body lies cold in the ground.
I think that is absolutely true. I mean, as the evidence continues to emerge, we find out that there's absolutely no excuse at this point for George Zimmerman to have not been arrested. Now, a conviction, asking for that is another thing, but an arrest is absolutely necessary here.
Absolutely right.
There's way too much evidence for this man to be walking free. I also agree with you that a boycott, I hadn't thought about boycotting the whole state of Florida, but I was really sickened that the Seminole chapter of the NAACP would stand up and protect money over integrity, that they, instead of doing what is right, or agreeing with someone doing what is right, or at least remaining silent about it, they want to do what I call sort of avoiding making the white folks mad. You get in these situations where people in the South, and it's all over the country, but it's really strong in the South, where there's just this fear of doing the right thing. And it really struck a chord with me, because not too long ago I got a call from an organization in Florida that had invited me in to speak. And they were like, well, we need to know, they called me and they said, well, we need to know what you're going to talk about, because we need to make sure you're not going to talk about anything controversial. And I'm like, oh, you mean you don't want me to make the white folks mad? Well, I promise I won't make the white folks mad by telling the truth about racism. I apologize to you. Right. So the point is, actually in that situation, I didn't have to talk about race, but the idea that they were trying to censor me in order to avoid sort of ruffling feathers or riling up the bad Negroes in town really bothered me. So I agree. I think that this brother in Florida needs to stand down and shut up, because in this situation we have to do what is right. And I agree. You and I have been balanced on Sharpton. I mean, we've lit up Sharpton when he wasn't doing the right thing. But in this situation, Sharpton's absolutely correct. Civil disobedience, economic sanctions, all that should be called for. Now, Dr. Leon, I'll let you get the last word on this, because I know you have to go. Where do you think we need to go from here, and what are you seeing in all of your expertise?
Well, I think that we need to press forward. We need to call for economic sanctions. We need to boycott the state of Florida. What I've been seeing, in fact, I watched a lot of the talking head shows this past Sunday, and you've got a lot of people that are saying now, well, we need to stand down. We need to let the investigation run its course. It's interesting that, and these were to a great degree white people saying we need to let the investigation run its course. The way we got to an investigation in the first place was by not standing down. If people had not taken up this issue and taken to the streets and taken to the airwaves, we may not ever have even heard of this issue. And I also find it very interesting that during the O.J. Simpson trial, the murder trial, a jury of his peers found him to be innocent. People didn't say, well, the process ran its course and justice was served. A jury of his peers found him innocent. No. Once that verdict came down, people were screaming because they didn't like the verdict. When Rodney King was videotaped being beaten in the street, we were told, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe the videotape. Because we know that these cops would not have beaten Rodney King simply because they had nothing else better to do. We saw this on video. So people were then telling us, ignore the video, ignore the evidence, and let's have a verdict that suits the interests of the people in power. Here we don't have video. But what we do have are elements that indicate very clearly that George Zimmerman was told by the police not to initiate contact with Trayvon Martin. He ignored that advice and put a bullet in his chest. And now people want to say, well, let's stand down. Let's allow the investigation to run its course. The investigation will run its course, and we have to be sure through direct action that we keep it on course.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I remember when I was at the University of Kentucky, 15 years ago, and I remember we had a protest on campus when a black woman was attacked, and they wanted to cover up the woman's attack because our basketball team had just made the Final Four, and they didn't want negative publicity. And it's interesting to bring this up in light of the fact that Kentucky's playing in the national championship tonight. And I remember, the thing, I met with the president of the university. He called me up because I was writing the student paper, and he wanted to kind of control what I had to say. And the thing I remember him saying was, be patient, be patient, be patient. Well, black people have always been told to be patient. And I said, no, I'm not going to be patient because this is a situation where action is called for. And I'm not going to hear any excuses because we know what's right in this situation. The same thing translates to Trayvon's case. The reality is that when Trayvon's situation emerged in local media, had it not been for black media, this thing would never have hit the national airwaves. You were talking about it on your show. We were talking about it on Your Black World. The black media grabbed onto this, and black people move forward with this. So the bottom line is that if we don't act, then nothing will happen. So I support what Sharpton's saying. The local NAACP needs to stand down, and I'd love to hear what Ben Jealous, the national president, has to say about this, because I can't imagine this making him happy, given that he was standing next to Sharpton in his protest earlier this week. So thank you very much, Dr. Leon. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Wilmer Leon. He is a Howard University political science professor. He is also the host of Inside the Issues with Wilmer Leon on Sirius XM The Power, channel 128. And your show comes on Saturdays from 11 to
2 p.m. Eastern Time.
11 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So you got to check it out. I believe it's one of the best shows on radio, if not the best.
Very kind. Thank you.
Absolutely, brother. So you take care, and thank you all for checking us out at yourblackworld.com. And until we meet again, stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.